Welcome to British Focus, your go-to channel for real news and sharp analysis on the latest political events. Today, we bring you a shocking development that has sparked outrage across the country. The Labour government has decided to postpone local elections in multiple regions, including East Sussex, West Sussex, Essex, Hampshire, and more. This move will deny over 5 million Britons their right to vote, an unprecedented attack on democracy in modern Britain. The government claims this is necessary to implement new local structures, but critics argue it's nothing more than a power grab, designed to keep control away from the people and in the hands of Westminster elites. This reckless decision has been met with fierce opposition, with many warning that it sets a dangerous precedent for future elections. If you believe in protecting democracy, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's dive into the full story.
Can I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for her statement in advance sight of it. Although supportive of the principle of devolving power to local areas, we are totally against her plans to abolish every county council and every district council in England, and the unprecedented mass postponement of local elections for at least 1 year. Today is a very worrying day for democracy in this country. She is making local government less accountable to the people and more accountable to her. Contrary to the Deputy Prime Minister's statement, she is not doing away with a two-tier system. She is simply creating a new tier of Orwellian-sounding strategic authorities, which are closer to her and closer to Whitehall. And these are for her to use as a pawn to implement this government's deeply unpopular socialist agenda. The reality is that this is delegation, not devolution, but a clear centralisation. As Dr. Andy Mycock of Leeds University sets out in his recent paper on her plans, there are clear concerns about the potential power drain of backbench local councillors if local government is seen increasingly as a delivery agent. Let us be clear, this announcement is a huge upheaval of local government right across the country, but this was not a government manifesto commitment, and she has no mandate for it. These are her choices, and she has put a gun to the head of local councils to force them into a decision with little regard for local people. It is not the invitation she claims in her statement, it is an instruction. No council should be bullied or blackmailed into local government restructuring. Local government should be local to residents and respect local identities. We have a proud record of supporting devolution, where we worked with local people and delivered devolution from the ground up rather than this top-down approach. The government tried to claim that they were taking a bottom-up approach. Indeed, the Minister for Local Government said exactly that on the floor of this House on the 20th of January. Yet in her very statement, she admits that all two-tier areas should be making plans to move to simpler structures. Whitehall diktats imposed on local people rather than the locally led approach we followed, which are prone to problems, especially when rushed. So the questions I have for the Deputy Prime Minister: how exactly does it put more money in people's pockets as she claims? What evidence has she got that will mean lower bills for taxpayers? How is this consistent with the Prime Minister's claims in March of 2023 that council tax would not increase by a single penny when they're in government? Does she accept that she has no electoral mandate for this huge upheaval? Does she also accept that these changes, which will mean every single council employee in two-tier areas reapplying for their jobs, will impact on local services, including planning delays? And how will this impact on her plans to deliver 1.5 million homes in this Parliament, a 50% increase from the 50-year record levels delivered by the previous government? Councils in some areas of the country, including in this announcement, are carrying very high levels of debt, Woking and Thurrock to name but two. What support will she be giving to authorities faced with eye-watering levels of debt? And will this debt be written off? What is she doing to ensure that as a result of today's announcement, that authorities do not embark on reckless asset disposal programmes and spending sprees? And can she confirm that elections will be delayed for a maximum of a year? Or is it the case, as we have heard, that elections could be delayed by up to 3 years?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, I've been very clear that Labour is embarking on a once-in-a-generation project to unlock growth in our regions and shift power out of Westminster and into local communities. I'm not quite sure where the benches opposite are. I can't quite figure out whether the Conservatives agree with it or whether they don't agree with it by that response, Madam Deputy Speaker. But what I will say in response to the Right Honourable Gentleman's questions was, first of all, it will unlock billions of pounds of money so that we can spend on frontline services. And that's why councils have come forward and want to work with us to ensure that we deliver. And all local government reform applications to the priority programme and all applications to the statutory invitation for all two-tier areas will be for local areas to decide and apply. But we've made no bones about the fact that we want to see reorganisation, so money and funding goes into public services where they need it the most. Secondly, Madam Deputy Speaker, he talked about money. We've put £69 billion, a real 6.8% cash terms increase into local authorities. In contrast, Madam Deputy Speaker, 23% cut in the last decade under the Conservatives. So when he talks about council debt, it's his government that has pushed councils to the brink. And he talked about impact on local services. We are working with councils to inject the money and resources so that they can deliver for local people. It's his government that brought them to the brink. He talked about housing targets. I can't believe, Madam Deputy Speaker, he wants to talk about housing targets because his government failed to meet their housing targets every single year and has left us with a housing crisis. The former minister should be apologising for his government's record on housing. Madam Deputy Speaker, we're proud of the work that we're doing on devolution. We're proud that we're working with councils. We're proud that we're bigging up the work of our local authorities and we'll continue to support them, unlike the party opposite did.
Chair of the Select Committee.
What we've just witnessed in Parliament is nothing short of an assault on democracy. The Labour government, under the guise of administrative restructuring, has decided to postpone local elections in multiple regions for at least a year, stripping millions of Britons of their right to vote. And for what? They claim it's about unlocking devolution and creating more sustainable governance. But let's call this what it really is: a blatant power grab designed to centralise control under Westminster and Labour-run authorities. Think about it. When has any government willingly given up power? The Vice Prime Minister stood there in Parliament, smugly declaring that this is about giving local councils more autonomy. Yet in the same breath, she admitted that these new structures will be closer to Whitehall, not the people. How does that sound like devolution? It doesn't. It sounds like a calculated move to remove accountability, silence opposition, and consolidate authority in Labour's hands. The opposition was quick to call this out, and rightly so. They pointed out that abolishing county and district councils across England isn't just a minor administrative change. It's a complete upheaval of local government, one that was never in Labour's manifesto and one that they have no democratic mandate to enforce. No referendum. No public consultation. Just top-down orders from a government that fears the will of the people. And here's the real kicker. What happens when you cancel elections? You remove the voice of the people. You deny voters their right to choose who governs them at a local level, all under the excuse that Labour needs time to build a better system. But is it really about building a better system? Or is it about ensuring that their own political allies stay in power unchallenged? Then came the expected talking points from Labour. This will unlock billions for public services, they said. Really? From where? The same public services that have been crumbling under Labour-run councils? The same councils that have been recklessly spending taxpayer money while demanding more bailouts? And let's not forget, the very councils where corruption scandals have become the norm rather than the exception. The opposition raised valid concerns about how this would impact council tax, employment, housing, and essential services. They asked how forcing thousands of council employees to reapply for their jobs, because that's exactly what this restructuring entails, would not create chaos and delays in local governance. Labour, of course, had no real answers. Instead, they shifted the blame to previous Conservative governments, dodging accountability as they always do. Meanwhile, outside Westminster, the backlash has been fierce. Reform UK has called this out for what it is: collusion between Labour and the Tories to stifle democracy and prevent their rising political threat. And let's be honest, they have a point. Reform UK has been gaining traction in key areas, threatening the establishment parties, and suddenly, elections are being postponed exactly where they were expected to make gains. Coincidence? Highly unlikely. Nigel Farage himself took to social media to express his outrage, comparing this move to the actions of dictatorships. And he's right. When democratic governments start cancelling elections under weak justifications, you have to ask yourself what's next. Will they extend this postponement indefinitely? Will they push for even greater restrictions on voting in the name of stability? Because history tells us that once politicians get a taste of unchecked power, they rarely give it up voluntarily. Across the country, protests are being organised in response to this democratic outrage. Reform UK has called for mass demonstrations in places like Great Yarmouth, where county council elections have been scrapped. The message from the people is clear: we will not be silenced. Yet, Labour remains defiant, insisting that this is all part of a grand vision for the future of local governance. A future where they hold all the cards and the voters are left powerless. And it's not just about these elections, it's about setting a precedent. Today, they cancel local elections under the excuse of restructuring. What's stopping them from cancelling general elections next? What's stopping them from finding another excuse to delay democracy indefinitely? This is why it is so dangerous, and why every Briton, regardless of political affiliation, should be deeply concerned about the erosion of their fundamental democratic rights. The only way to fight back is through mass public pressure. The government must be held accountable for this blatant manipulation of democracy. We must demand transparency and push back against any further delays to our electoral process. If we allow this to happen without resistance, we are opening the door to even greater abuses of power in the future. This is not just a local issue, it is a national crisis. The right to vote is sacred, and no government, no matter how powerful, has the right to strip it away from the people. So now, it's over to you. What do you think about this outrageous decision? Do you believe Labour's justifications, or do you see this for what it really is, a desperate attempt to cling on to power at any cost? Let us know in the comments below. And if you value democracy and want to stand against government overreach, make sure to like this video, subscribe to British Focus, and share this with as many people as possible. The more people know about this, the harder it will be for Labour to get away with it. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and never let them silence your voice.